Hello, welcome to this course Introduction to Literature. The course Introduction to Literature is part of the UG curriculum. The course is aimed at introducing the core paper, the core subject of literature to the students of UG program of English literature. It aims at forming a foundational understanding of the subject English literature. The course is aimed at arriving out the course learning outcomes as describing the forms of literature and the basic elements of literature. On completion, the students, the takers of this course, are expected to have developed a foundational knowledge of elements of fiction, including the narrative structure. Another outcome of this course is to classify and explore dramatic storytelling and to criticize a text knowledgeably. As doing this course, the students will also be encouraged to do a written project forming a hypothesis on the foundational knowledge, deriving at the foundational knowledge and submitting a writing project on their understanding of English literature. The course Introduction to Literature has 5 units. The first unit is on the literary forms. The forms of literature are given an elaborate explanation in the unit. In the first unit, Introduction to Poetry, different forms of poetry are given. To touch upon the definitions of forms of poetry, let me list out those forms one after another and give a basic definition of these forms. Completing with the first unit, I'll proceed to the second unit. The first form of poetry which the course introduces is sonnet. A sonnet is a 14-lined poem. The second literary form is ode. An ode is a ceremonious poem, an ornate poem written to celebrate occasions. An elegy. Elegy is a poem of mourning written over to mourn the death of a poet's near and dear one or a famous personality. A lyric is a musical poem. The next form is ballad. A ballad is a poem of dance written with rhyme scheme, aiming at forming a background for a dance. Then the syllabus covers prose forms such as short story, novella and novel. Short story is a prose narrative with a plot, but the plot of the short story is the plot of the short story revolves around a core of a story which runs up to 10 to 15 pages, for instance. The next prose narrative is novella. A novella is a prose fiction which is a shorter form of novel. The next literary form in the first unit is novel. A novel is a fictional writing, a large fictional writing. The next literary form in the first unit is drama. The three major forms of drama are explained in the first unit. The first is comedy. A comedy is a play which ends with a happy note. A tragedy is a play which ends with the death of major characters, in which the plot is set in motion by the tragic flaw of the protagonist. Then the tragicomedy is the third form in the drama. A tragicomedy is also known as the dramatic romance, which has a combination of comic and tragic elements, but ends with a happy note. So these are the contents in the first unit in the paper Introduction to Literature. The second unit is a unit of poems, in which poems from the Elizabethan and the Romantic age have been prescribed. The first poem in the second unit is Michael Drayton's The Parting, then William Shakespeare's Sonnet 18 and Sonnet 116, then John Milton's poem When I Consider How My Light is Spent, and William Wordsworth's poem Daffodils, and John Keats' Ode to Nightingale, Thomas Gray's Elegy Written in a Country Churchyard, and Robert Frost's Mending Wall. Then the third unit is a unit on drama, in which there are two plays. The first play is J.M. Barrie's The Admirable Crichton. Then the next play is Lady Gregory's The Rising of the Moon. The next unit, Unit 4, is a unit of prose narrative, that is, prose romances have been included in the fourth unit. So the first prose romance is Manohar Malgonkar, Spy in Amber. And the next, Don Quixote, Tilting at the Windmills. And the next, Catherine Mansfield, Bliss and Other Stories. And the fifth unit is short story. The fifth unit includes short stories. So the short stories in the fifth unit are as follows. Saki, Hector Hugh Munro short story, The Open Window. And the next one, Emmy Laybourne's Sweet. And then Jerome K. Jerome's short story, Three Men in a Boat. So these are the literary pieces, poems, drama, and prose work prescribed in the paper Introduction to Literature. So in my next lecture, I shall be starting with the first unit, the forms of literature. Thank you.